Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Zachary Reality. I am your host, Zachary Reality. Welcome back to a brand new episode of my podcast. This is such an exciting episode, which I probably say every single week, but this episode is so interesting because this episode is something we've never done before. Just like a whole new fresh face, a whole new vibe. We have Bachelor Data coming on my podcast. If you don't know who Bachelor Data is, she basically is an account that keeps track of all Bachelor data. It's literally that simple. She monitors screen time, Instagram follower growth, fireworks, just like random things about The Bachelor, and just like puts them all into a spreadsheet, posts statistics on her Instagram, and basically keeps you informed on all things Bachelor Data. We really get into so much about the show over the years and the data and like how the show has changed and what she's recorded. This is just such an interesting episode, and I feel like longtime Bachelor fans are going to enjoy this so much. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. Also, guys, today is my birthday, as in today, not yesterday when I recorded this. Today, June 24th, today is my birthday, 24 on the 24. I just turned 24. I'm freaking out that tomorrow is my birthday, even though it's today, just because I feel like birthdays have so much pressure. I don't know about you, but I've been planning my birthday for 2 months, and I feel like it's my wedding day. And I'm just having so much anxiety. So hopefully when this is out tomorrow, I'm at peace. And it's my birthday, and we can just enjoy the day. Does anyone else feel like that when it's their birthday? I'm can we just get this over with? Let's celebrate me. Let's make it about me. Let's take a picture and let's move on with our life. It's just, I feel so much pressure. So I just had to throw that in there and let you guys know that I'm releasing this episode on my freaking birthday. And I'm just so excited that it's my birthday and that it'll be over soon, because it's just giving me anxiety. So I just had to throw that in there. But yeah, just wish me a happy birthday on Instagram, please, because that would make my day. Just Zachary Reality on Instagram, or go to my TikTok and just tell me happy birthday. Anyway, I'm going to play the podcast with Bachelor Data. We're talking all about Katie's season of The Bachelor. She's bringing so many fun factoids about the show over the years. We're definitely having a really good conversation. This is an amazing episode of my podcast. So sit back, enjoy, and listen to the podcast. Okay, we are here with the one and only Bachelor Data. Welcome to my podcast, and please introduce yourself as your name and not Bachelor Data.
Thanks for having me. My name is Suzana Summers. I am the founder of Bachelor Data. Started my Instagram account in technically February of 2020. But we all know it happened a few weeks later. So we really kicked things off fall of 2020.
Oh, cool. I think I discovered your account a couple months ago, and I was like, oh my God, who is this? I need to have her on my podcast. This is genius. I would never even think to have a Bachelor Data type of account. That's so genius, and it's something that no one else is doing. How did you get the idea to start this?
Yeah, the project had actually started December of 2018. So I had just become a technology director. Before that, I was an elementary teacher. So what I'm trying to say is absolutely no experience with data visualization. And I decided it was about time for me to learn how to use spreadsheets, because I was seeing them so much at work. And, I could do a few things. I could go into a cell and say this cell plus that cell equals, sum of that. But I really I didn't know formulas. I didn't know how to make them look pretty. So I tried to sign up for some Excel classes online, and they were so dry. It was like Bueller, monotoned lessons that were so boring, that I was like, you know what? I've been following the Bachelor subreddit. People love to talk about Instagram follower counts. So I was like, why don't I start tracking this and then play with the data to learn how to use spreadsheets?
So you started just tracking the followers, and then it led into everything.
Yeah, it kind of snowballed last year.
Wow. And it's really heating up. A lot of people are more interested in it than ever. I've noticed with The Bachelor that people don't even like to watch the actual show anymore. They just like to interact with people and talk about the show and shit on the show afterwards. And I feel like the reason why your account is so interesting, it's because you have all of these interesting facts that people are just so curious about. Besides tracking followers, what are some of the other things you like to track?
Yeah, so the other big thing that we collect data wise, that we started actually Tasha's first episode during her season, is screen time. So we call it featured screen time, and it's not like how long is every single person on the TV? Because when we were like, oh, well, we want to see like how much screen time do people get? We were like, okay, well, we don't want to know if a ton of men are on the couch, right? We want to know, okay, there's a ton of men at the couch in the house, but there's two men that are really like fighting back and forth. They're the people that are featured. So we call it featured screen time. And the point of that is not only to collect, okay, who had the most screen time, but then being able to connect that with Instagram growth to see, well, last episode, episode 2, Carl had a ton of screen time and no growth. But then meanwhile, Greg and now this week, Michael, a lot of screen time and a lot of Instagram growth. So it's cool to be able to collect those two pieces of data to really be able to see, okay, what are the producers showing us? And then what's the impact on the audience based on what they're showing us? And then aside from that, we collect a ton of like novelty type of data. So the history of getting a fireworks date and then how long you last, or first impression rose recipients, how long do they have to wait for their first date, or how long do they actually last? And finding cool stuff like Bachelorette first impression roses actually really often go on to win the whole thing. Whereas on The Bachelor, when it's the men giving out the first impression rose, they actually do a horrible job at picking their final people.
Yeah, I love that you're here with me because I'm a Bachelor Nation super fan. I've been watching for 10 years. So everything that you're tracking, I'm like, I already know this. I'm doing the history. I know the first impression rose. I know this, I know that. So it's so interesting to have you here because like, I get it. I've been watching the show forever and I get it. Now, one thing you said we. Do you have a whole team running Bachelor Data or do you do this by yourself? And this is your side hustle, right? It's not like your full-time job.
Correct. So by day, I'm a technology director for a school district now, which, as you can imagine, I've had a really rough year and a half now. So very much a full day job that I work well beyond actual work hours often. But I recently brought on a friend of mine who is also a Bachelor super fan, who just for years now with me working on this data, she's always one of the first people that I just like send what I'm working on to for her ideas. So I brought her on board thanks to Patreon. And all the people who support us on there. She's actually helping me now with collecting all the screen time, which can take, after the premiere between the two of us, I think we spent 8 to 10 hours collecting it. So.
Oh my God. Wait, so you have a podcast?
No, we don't. So we do a Patreon where it's not like you get bonus podcasts, but you get bonus data posts. Or like we all saw in the preview this week that Blake Moynes,
yeah.
Moynes, he is coming back from Claire and Tasha's season. Well, Patreon subscribers, they're actually going to get a post early this week on people who come back from previous seasons and how well they actually do. But they also get exclusive posts like, they actually get the full breakdown of screen time. They get race representation every week. And then they also get my analysis. So I do a whole write-up blog post analyzing the data.
So you found a way to make some money out of this.
Yeah, and it was sustainable when I started it because especially here, I live in Boston and everything was locked down and we were taking it really seriously, especially with me going in and working with schools. It's not like I could just have bigger bubbles and pods of friends. So it was sustainable at the time for me to do this all because I was like twiddling my thumbs at home whenever I was trying to not work. So naturally I found another way to work. But now that, trying to come out of the pandemic and I also have another startup aside from this, it's really helpful to have somebody else that I can pay to bring on board to help me.
I mean, this can turn into a whole big thing. I mean, I noticed that you might be doing the Circle data, maybe a couple other reality shows. I mean, you can literally turn this into reality show data. What other reality shows besides the Circle were you thinking about collecting data?
Yeah, so I just started a new Instagram account called Reality TV Data. And for me, my first reality TV show actually wasn't The Bachelor, it was Big Brother.
Okay.
2 years before I started watching The Bachelor. So I started with Jake Pavelka
Me
when
too.
I was in college.
I started with Jake Pavelka too.
Such a good first season.
Such a good first season. Because Vienna, Allie, Gia, who unfortunately passed away, like there was so much drama in that season. And then like
the cast was so good.
So good. And then Brad Womack, second season with like Michelle Money, like those were the prime time. Those were like my favorite seasons watching. Ben Flanick, Courtney Robertson.
So good.
A gem.
So good. Yeah. No, those years I struggle, especially like Sean Lowe. Like I can just keep going. Those years were so good. And that's also too, I feel like Katie's season is getting us back there to the prime years. But Big Brother is one that I started watching before Bachelor. So I'm really excited because there's a lot of game aspect to it that can be analyzed, but we're going to start with Instagram follower accounts, kind of see what's going on there first.
Okay. Have you ever watched Survivor?
I have tried so hard to like Survivor. And I have people DM me and they'll be like, "Hey, you should do Survivor." And I'm like, "Listen, I have tried so hard to love Survivor, but I just can't get into it." But somebody did send me some seasons I hadn't watched. But there's so much potential in Survivor, and there are people that are crunching some numbers already around gameplay. So
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think the Survivor fan base is a lot of nerds. And I feel like I'm sure you're a proud nerd and it's an amazing thing. So I feel like a lot of people are kind of doing similar things too in the Survivor world. I also noticed that I feel like people are like either Survivor fans or Big Brother fans, like hardcore. I'm a Survivor fan.
oh,
So I can tell
interesting.
you, I can do the data for you on Survivor, honestly. Like I know it from my heart. Like that's the first show I ever got into. I was like 6. Big Brother, I haven't really gotten into too much, but I want to watch this season. Are you like planning on watching Big Brother this season? Like, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to be able to pull it off this summer. When I was in college, I actually used to buy the live feeds, which I don't think I could pull that off anymore. Just because it's such a commitment with like following certain Twitter accounts to jump on at the right time. But yeah, I'm gonna hope to watch all 3 episodes every week of Big Brother. I don't know if we're gonna be doing screen time yet, just because 3 hours a week is a big commitment. But yeah, we're gonna be trying to analyze some of the gameplay too, which will push me on some of my Big Brother knowledge. You'd really be surprised. Like even as somebody like myself, where I'm a super fan, and I used to just always keep Bachelor like old seasons running on in the background whenever I'm like cleaning at home. Like it's amazing how much information needs to be recalled when you're trying to do some of those novelty posts. That it gets tricky.
Oh, I could totally imagine. Now, something I'm so curious about, and I'm sure you've noticed this, Bachelor contestants are not gaining the followers they used to. Like they used to go on the show, get 1 million followers, no big deal. Now it's like the it girls from Matt James' season only have 50, 60,000. And it's crazy to me. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that I find that absolutely fascinating because I think the peak that we saw for Bachelor, Tyler C was the last of the like big earners, and Peter was from the same season, and then on Peter's season, Maddie and Hannah Ann are really the last of the girls that we've seen gain a ton of followers, and you would think that the pandemic, everybody being locked at home, can't go out a ton, that I feel like that would boost their followers for Matt James season, but we're seeing a decline. So I think it can attribute to a few things. People are leaving Instagram. TikTok it's really becoming the next big thing. That's where I found you.
Yeah.
And I reached out to you. I was like, oh my gosh, I found your page and I love it.
And once you reached
And
out to me, I was like, I know your page and I love it. Like we're following each other. We're friends. We're doing this.
and I think that's a big thing. And yeah, I was resistant to TikTok for the longest time at the beginning of the shutdown, also because like I was a little busy with work. But once I got on it, it's so engaging, and it's short form video media is really where things are going. And that's gonna kind of be my next venture. And I'm trying myself to go onto TikTok, and like praise to you because that switch is a big one. But
Mhm.
I think a lot of Bachelor contestants are going to need to figure out how to pivot into that media space. And I can see this season, we're seeing hunters on there. We're seeing a few contestants that are really trying to pick up on it. But how are they going to sell themselves on short form media now when there was already such a recipe for Instagram and how to come off and make that money?
That is true. And I also think maybe part of the reason why is because there's so many Bachelor contestants to follow. And now I think we're at the point in the show where it's reaching its last few years. It's just there's too many contestants, there's too many of the same formula. The show's getting overexposed. Now there's some controversy, there's been racial controversy, the host situation's messed up. They're losing viewers, they're losing ratings. This season is down 2 million in ratings. Do you keep track of the ratings as well? And why do you think the show might be declining?
I do keep track of the ratings, but I think it can be such a clickbaity thing to report on because yes, are the number of viewers down? Yes. they were also down for Hannah Brown's season. She had a horrible season compared to previous seasons. You know, that's happened every year, because it's not just like Nielsen is the big one that people use to talk about ratings, and they're trying to adapt. They're trying to keep up with streaming. They're really slow to it. But it's not just that. I mean, if we look back at the Sean Lowe days, like, it does not touch anymore. But we didn't have that many shows back then to watch. You know, Netflix was just becoming to be a thing back then. And now look at Netflix, they're busting out all these great reality TV shows. We're about to get a new one from a previous Bachelor producer. Like, there's just so many options that I don't think that just because it's down so many million from the last seasons or whatever, like, I don't think that that necessarily means the show is ending anytime soon. I mean, it's still one of the top rated shows on its slot for its night, that advertisers are still going to flock there. I think honestly the next big metric that what advertisers are going to care about are how people engage with the show. And that's where data like what I'm reporting on can be useful, because yes, we can look at like the Bachelor, the Bachelorette, ABC, you know, Instagram pages, and like, okay, how are people interacting there? But that's not the true metric. Like, I don't go on the Bachelorette's Instagram page and like go into the comments, because that sounds horrible. I go to meme pages. I go to pages that report on the news, like yours. Yours reports on TV shows. I want to see how people are engaging. At least this is what I'm assuming as an advertiser. I want to see how people are engaging with that kind of content, because it's going to tell me who my target audience is and how engaged they are with the show.
100%.
So
You're
I think
definitely, yeah, you're definitely up on the social media. You're almost like, you could almost be like a social media manager. Has the Bachelorette ever reached out to you or noticed your page?
well, so they have it's a verified page. It's Bachelor Nation, and it's like run by the producers, I believe. Per their bio has said that at some point. That account follows my account. So I'm assuming they know about me. There are a lot of contestants that have publicly commented on my pages, though. Even this season, Landon came on to talk about the suit analysis that I did the first night, because he wore like a, you know,
A salmon suit.
Yeah, and he was like, well, it didn't work this season or something like
So
that.
what is
You
the
know.
salmon suit analysis? Salmon suits don't
Uh,
work?
well, I do. So this season, I did for Matt's season, I did a first night dress color analysis of like all the women's dress colors, and I was like, well, how are we gonna do this for the men? So I was like, okay, let's analyze their suit color, which turned into suit, undershirt, if they wore a tie or a bow tie, and then the color of that and what that led to. So when I posted that, he went and commented that it must have not worked, because it worked in previous seasons, like with Hannah Brown.
Because I remember Tyler C had a salmon suit, and Thomas wore a salmon suit, I believe, this week. And we know he's probably on his way out, because he's becoming the villain. One thing I also noticed with the show, and I'm sure you picked up on this, is that villains are now getting confronted earlier and leaving earlier. There's no more dragged out villains like the Courtneys or the Michelles or Luke P, where they're like the villain for multiple episodes. It's now like, you're the villain, we're hashing this out, MJ and Jasenia style, and then you're done. Why do you think that is?
You know, I think there was a shift, right? So when we look back at like Sean Lowe season, his is like my favorite villain, because like Tia was like, it's my tiara, like it's my sparkle, it's my eyebrow. Like, it's like, that is such silly, like, you can enjoy that drama, right? But I mean, at the same time, you also like, now understanding empathy for these people, you also feel horrible. But I think there was definitely a big shift. Gosh, what season was it? But in the last like 3-4 years,
I want to say Ben Higgins season, after that, it just became a little different with like Instagram and like, I think reality TV as a whole has become a lot more like, they want to keep your attention. So there's more fights, more drama, more action, and it's less genuine now on all reality shows.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the drama, like, you can tell how producer driven it's been, but it's also, I don't know, I feel like it just hasn't sat well with viewers over the last few seasons. Like, especially Matt James, I was like, personally, like, I go to therapy because, like, bless therapy, it's the greatest thing. And there was one week that I walked in and I was like, I need to debrief on what happened on The Bachelor, because I'm seriously like middle school triggered on the way that these girls were treating each other. But on top of that, like, bringing up a rumor that a girl was a prostitute. Like that's that feels like a different type of reality TV show that's not owned by ABC, which is owned by Disney. Like,
Mhm.
it hasn't felt, you know, I don't know. And that's where I feel like Katie's season, especially, I feel like so many new things are happening. Absolutely love the host dynamics. I know that this is super controversial, but personally, if I were Katie, I would not want like I don't know how old Chris Harrison is, 50
He's
year old man.
49. Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
49
So
or
almost
50.
50 divorced man coaching me on how to find love. I'd rather have like two girls that feel like my girlfriends to debrief and
Yeah.
like, especially after, I love the phrase everybody's using, especially with like Game of Roses, with like the men are unionizing too.
Mhm.
Like, I love that she was able to leave that situation, which I was also like on my couch, like, did this really just happen? I'm like shouting by myself, and my boyfriend's like, can you not yell so loud? Um, and I'm like, this is amazing drama. Like, this is new. I'm engaged. And then she gets to go and debrief with like her girlfriends. Like, I like those new dynamics that are coming to it. But I think it's also interesting to see how Katie is using Instagram this season and social
She's
media in
engaging.
general.
She is so much
Yeah.
more engaging. I've never had a bachelorette reach out to me or follow me until Katie. And she is like engaging with my posts because I guess she sees the value in that on TikTok when no other bachelorette has ever engaged with any Instagram influencer besides whoever is like legit. Like they don't start with like the self-starters. They just like get people who are like a part of the network. It's so interesting. And that's why I love Katie so much, because you can tell how down to earth she is and how like she gets social media and she gets that these are the podcasts that are like continuing this show. And I feel like The Bachelor just hasn't been doing a good job with their social media over the past few years either. They don't engage with Bachelor podcasts. But this season, they have Heather McDonald come on. And do you remember that scene when Heather was like, and most importantly, when Katie was like, the Juicy Scoop podcast? I was like, finally, like give somebody credit who's like keeping
Yes.
the show alive and keeping that engagement, because more people like engaging in these Bachelor podcasts and these Bachelor accounts than they actually like watching the show.
Yeah. And I think personally, like the shift that I see happening feels a lot like when we started watching with the Jake Pavelka era and Brad Womack. I think Brad Womack was the first season that they allowed contestants to use their social media while it was airing, which, like, if you look back to those days, like, who was running their marketing team? Because making all the contestants be absolutely silent on social media, like, how is that helping your show? So I
Mhm.
feel like now we're having a shift now. And like last season too, I had Ivan was like commenting publicly on my posts at the beginning of the season, and we ended up seeing that he made it pretty far. So the fact that they're allowing contestants to interact more, I think, is going to help the show.
100%. So let's talk a little bit about this season. You're doing your data analysis, and do you look up spoilers or do you not know spoilers?
Um, so when I started watching my first season, I looked them up. So like this is back when I was like in my college dorm and was just bored one weekend. I was like, oh, I know what happens on this show. I wonder if there's spoilers. So I've been spoiled a lot in the past. Now that I do analysis around it, I don't love spoilers because it adds another variable to the data that can influence why people are following the person. But it doesn't always point to it. So if you look at like Tayshia's season, the spoiler was that Zach won early on, but you could not see it in follower accounts. Like he was dragging behind the other men. So yeah, I am spoiled just, and also especially with an account like mine, like the second spoilers drop, like I don't even have time to like see it myself. Like it just gets DM'd to me. So it's hard not to be. But yeah, I have to, just because if not, I can't analyze the data.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, like, who you think is going to win this season based on screen time and all of your data analysis. But if you already kind of know in the back of your head, then can you say who you thought was going to win on night one, just based on night one?
Well, I think you can't analyze who's going to win just based off of night one screen time, especially because character arcs, like they're so different every season that a lot of times you won't see a character until halfway through the season. Like Zach, we didn't see him with Tayshia much the first few episodes. So it really depends on when did they actually get their date, which can be, when did they have fireworks scheduled for, those specific dates that they hold for people that make it far. Yeah, I did see there was a spoiler drop today. I'm not going to talk about it on here because I don't know if
Yeah,
everybody's
don't
spoiled, but
tell
I will
them.
tell you that like up until yesterday, especially a lot of what I was thinking was how odd it was that a first impression rose recipient immediately got the first date. That's never happened before, at least in the years that we've
Yeah,
watched it.
it's never happened.
Um,
And I kind of thought the reason he got that date is because the date that they already picked with the river and everything had something to do with Katie's dad who passed away. So I think because Greg's dad passed away, it kind of just happened like that. But also, Greg was never, he's not the villain. He could have easily had a target on his back because he got the first impression rose and the one-on-one, but it doesn't seem like anyone has a problem with him. He seems very likable in the house. And Katie and Greg have a great connection. I really like them together. Did you see this post that Katie liked? I think it was yesterday. Did you see that meme that Greg might want to be an actor or something?
Yeah, I did see that. And I've read a little bit about like all the sides that could be included in that. I think especially since we know Katie is so social media savvy, and I'm sure she knows who spoils the show. She knows stuff that's out there. It wouldn't surprise me if she's smart enough to also like troll people,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm sure she doesn't want her ending spoiled because she wants people excited about it. But I mean, there's also been people talking. I think I saw on Reddit that like apparently the sister that commented afterwards is not exactly a normal social media poster. I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
She's kind of a little.
It's just I look at that as just like a meme. Like Katie's funny. Like she wants to just laugh on, and memes are meant to be funny. Like you like memes. Being shady is fun. It's all in good fun, especially on the internet. So I wouldn't take that too
Yeah.
seriously. But taking away your data queen, I guess you are the data queen. Who are some of your favorites this season on the show? Like who are you really relating to?
Um, I liked Greg's story. I personally I have a cat, so I thought that the cat entrance with Connor was absolutely hilarious. And the fact that she kissed him the first night, I was like, this is awesome.
And
Like
then
the
she
fact
turned
that
into a
she,
cat,
yeah, exactly.
straight out of
And
Shrek.
yeah, and I love Andrew S, but I feel like especially his screen time so much this season has been so narrator focused. So something that we've been really trying to like nail down is like people's character arcs. Can you actually classify why somebody was put on the show? Especially Rachel Lindsay's article where she talks about how, people of color have been used as tokens on the show. And there were some women also in Matt James season who said that. I was like, okay, well, what would a token look like? Like, how would you define that? How would you measure it? And what's really hard is actually like a narrator is easy to pin down. Like, we're only seeing this guy talking about other people in the house and how he's feeling about other people in the house. So that's an easy one. But the villain one is so difficult because there's different types of villains, especially Ben Higgins is my favorite season to talk
Mm-hmm.
about with that, where like we had Olivia Caridi, but then as soon as a villain goes home, they fill him with a new villain. And on Ben Higgins' season, it was Leah, who was not a villain the entire season, but had one bad date that the editing was so choppy. Um, so it's so tough to analyze that. But I like Andrew. Um, but I feel like he's just being used as a narrator.
But he's gonna go
Uh,
far. I think he is getting like this storyline. He's on every episode. They make sure he's there, but he's not getting like his full one-on-one date yet. I think Andrew is giving me like third place vibes.
yeah, I mean, I've always watched Spoiled, so it's like it's hard to say like
Okay.
how I feel about somebody, but it's nice this season that we've gone so far without any spoilers. But I always like to like not comment on how I like,
Okay. That's fair.
because I don't want to spoil anybody who doesn't
Yeah,
want to be
no.
spoiled. But
And I don't look at spoilers, FYI, everyone. I don't know spoilers, but I feel like after watching the show for so long, I can kind of tell who is going to go super far. And I noticed that there's always like a couple people that they're going far, like Justin and like Andrew, but they just haven't had their story yet. So that means they're gonna have more of their story at the end of the season. It kind of happened with Ivan. He was a little bit quiet, but he was always there. So you knew he was gonna have a bigger thing towards the end. But sometimes it's just hard to tell who the first place winner is. This season, it just feels so obvious that it's Greg, but then it feels too obvious that it's Greg. So that's why I feel like there's going to be a shakeup. So I'm interested to see what happens when Blake comes next week. I definitely think he's going far. Now, who was the last person that on The Bachelorette that came back? Because the only person I could think of is Nick.
Ooh. I actually just worked on this today, but I think I have it closed out. It's not as common as you would think that it happens. I went back all the way to I went all the way back to Jason Mesnick, and I hardly found anybody. So the last year that we saw this happen, other than Matt James with
Mhm.
Heather showing up, was Ben Higgins' season.
Back at
And then the
Totally.
last Bachelorette it happened on was Caitlyn, so 2015. So it's been a hot minute.
Yeah, and Nick, and then he went to the top two because
Yes.
they had a connection before the show, and I definitely think Blake and Katie had a connection before the show. So I think that it's like when you know someone longer, it almost kind of like you feel more comfortable with them. And that's why I give Claire a break. I don't know what you think about Claire, but I feel like her cast list was released 6 months before she went into shooting because of COVID. So it's like, of course, she was so over it by the time she got there. You
And she got
know?
to stalk them ahead of time, which this was something I was really hoping that they'd be able to do with like changing up the show this season and Caitlyn and Tayshia being there. I was so hoping that they'd finally add the aspect of the show of breaking down that third wall. And like maybe before hometowns or like that last week before hometowns, letting the lead actually look these people up, because like there was somebody who actually DM'd me. She went back and took data on every single contestant's Instagram account from 2019 until February of this year and analyzed each post if it was like self-promotion, family, travel, work, and like being able to look at that kind of stuff. I think it helps. Like it lets them kind of like see these people, but I think it also can be hurtful if you do it as much as Claire did, because then as you can see, you fall in love with people before you meet them. So
Exactly. Yeah. So let's switch gears and let's talk Paradise. You watch Bachelor in Paradise? You've seen every season, and what are you looking forward to this season? Do you have any statistics already based on what we know that you want to share?
I've watched every season, some of them multiple times, but I've never analyzed it. I 2 summers ago, our last Bachelor in Paradise, back then I used to pull Instagram follower accounts with a script that I used to run. And I set it up for all the contestants, but I never did anything with that data. So I don't have a ton of data, and I am so excited for what this season's going to hold with all the possibilities of, because it feels like such a puzzle. So how can we make that into data?
Yeah, well, the follower account is going to be so interesting with Bachelor in Paradise because it will blow up. I think Paradise is going to have through the roof ratings compared to Bachelorette. Like people are really looking forward to it.
I think also with that, we've seen a decline in people's Instagram follower accounts, but we also haven't had Bachelor in Paradise, which is where we see people skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kaylin and Dean. They're some of the most followed people in the Bachelor world. And we were able to fall in love with them on Bachelor in Paradise. And on top of that, too, like Tyler C, we saw him do so well because obviously like he was a heartthrob, like he's a model, right? And he said all the right things. But something that we see is that, the majority of people who watch this show are women, right? So if you go on the show and you're a woman, you're going to do great coming off and trying to kickstart a business off of becoming an influencer, because women like to buy stuff from women, right? So you want to buy their hair stuff, you want to buy their makeup stuff. I remember when Hannah Godwin, when
Yeah,
she came off, everybody wanted to know what highlighter she used because
yeah.
like that was her big thing. When men come off of this show, they don't do great on social media because people like women don't, like
Unless they're really
maybe like,
hot.
yes. But still with that, like another thing I'm going to be doing soon is analyzing YouTube views. So if you look at Tyler C, for example, he's one of the top 4 most followed people from this show. But if you look at his YouTube page, because he does tons of YouTube videos now, he doesn't get more than like 16,000 views on his videos. You look at Ari and Lauren, aside from their recent babies, because those
Yeah.
obviously are going to perform well, they get like 250,000 views on every video. So relationships, when you're a man coming off of the show, do great. People want to follow you because they want to see how you're doing in a
Yes.
relationship, because that's what women, well, I'm assuming what women are
Yeah.
buying into.
And that's why sometimes people fake relationships on Paradise and keep it after the show because you can gain your following. Once you have your following, you can extend that into many years. I want to guess, you do know this off the top of your head, the top like followed people on Instagram from The Bachelor, just like overall. So I'm gonna guess, and you're gonna tell me if I'm right. Because I think I know. Well, I think the top
Okay.
girl is Hannah Brown. I think she's at 2.5 million, right?
Yes. And she's actually dropped quite a bit. So once you,
Oh,
I call it like
wow.
the bachelor capacity, right? It's like the most number of followers that anybody has from this show, and it's Hannah Brown. But before that, it was somebody else. It's never gone above like 2.6, 2.7 million. And up there, a lot of them are just losing followers because there's not more shows around them.
Yeah, if you don't continue your career on social media, you're gonna lose your followers over time. But I also with Tyler C, I guess he's like the top guy that's ever been followed. He had over 200,000 followers before even going on the show because he was a model. So those people have an advantage as well because they start off with a huge following. They already have a following from whatever else they're doing before. So Tyler C is the most followed. Who is also most followed from the show?
JoJo.
Mhm.
Colton is up there too, but I have so many problems with that because so there was the whole scandal last year where it came out that that Cassie took out a restraining order because he was stalking her, harassing her after she broke up with him. And then if you remember at that time, he wiped his
Deleted.
social media and he was silent from like September, October through the end of December. And the first thing he did at the end of December was like December 26th. He just started doing some stories until he ended up coming out. Okay. That whole time, his follower counts were dropping. Makes sense. Not in the news because the whole like stalker thing had
Yeah,
gone out of the news. Wasn't doing any posts, wasn't doing any stories, no advertisements. Like
I
there was
unfollowed
nothing
him.
happening with him.
I
Yeah, so
unfollowed him,
people
but now I
unfollowed him.
refollowed him. Now I follow him
Yeah,
again.
but here's the thing that happened during that time off from social media. He dropped, which makes sense. A lot of those are like, people's burner accounts get deleted. Like there's deactivated accounts, dropped every day. And then as soon as it got to 1.9 million, where it dropped below the 2 million count, suddenly silence, no media. He jumped 30,000 followers in a day. He gained 35,000 followers out of nowhere.
Before the
And that
interview?
happened. Yeah, this was during his time off
Wow.
from social media, no stories, nothing. And it kept happening where he dropped followers and then suddenly one day he gained 30, 40, 50,000 and then he'd start dropping again over time.
Mhm.
And same thing happened when he came out. Obviously, a ton of people followed him. I did too. See what happens. See how he's going to pivot this. Is he going to turn to career? I want to see what
Yeah.
I felt for him. Like I also felt for Cassie last year because I triggered, right? But then when he came out and he's talking about how he like thanked God the day he became the Bachelor for making him straight, I was like, oh, that hurts to hear. Like
So hard.
that's horrible that you had to feel that way.
Yeah.
I followed him, but then I unfollowed him. And over time, since he gained those followers the days that he came out, he hit 1.9 million. And guess what happened? He gained followers up to 2 million again. So I have some problems with his 2 million, but he's not the only person who buys followers. So
I was going to ask you about bots and how you and maybe buying followers. And do you know when someone buys followers and how the bots work?
not really. So you used to be able to see it a lot more because there were a lot of sites that actually analyzed the authenticity of people's followers, but a lot of those have gotten taken down. The thing I like to do is with a season being on, there's trends you can see, and then you have to take into account different variables, right? So when the whole Chris Harrison, Rachel Lindsay, Rachel Gurconnell scandal happened, you would expect that would impact the normal trend that you see every week of people gaining. So it's kind of like you gain Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it kind of flattens out a little bit until the next episode. That's the normal gain. I've seen in previous seasons where it's like you see people where it's like on a Saturday, they didn't get any screen time. Nobody even knows who they are, and they just suddenly gain 50,000 followers. Like that's easy to point to. I haven't seen that in a few seasons. People love to point to like Maddie Pruitt from Peter's season. They're like, oh, she bought followers. Like oh my gosh, she has so many followers. But like that's not a trend. You can't just say because somebody has a ton of followers that they bought them.
Yeah. Wow. I hate that people can even buy followers in the first place. It's just annoying, especially for people who work so hard to gain their followers. I just think it's so frustrating. But I can literally talk to you all day about this. And I kind of want to wrap things up. I want you to kind of tell everybody where they could find you, what exactly you're doing, why they should follow you to kind of wrap this up.
Yeah, so I am Bachelor Data on Instagram. I started TikTok, still trying to learn it. And I also have
You
reality
know what you
TV
need to do
today.
on TikTok? You know what you need to do on TikTok is say your data, kind of like how I talk. Like that's what would get people watching.
I should try that. I need you to coach me on TikTok because let me tell you, there's nothing that makes me feel more 30 years old than TikTok.
Okay, well,
Um,
I'll coach you on TikTok. You coach me on Instagram.
Perfect.
And yeah, so why should everyone follow you?
Oh yeah. So we're going to be providing a ton of new data this season, especially on the changes in Katie's season. But we're also going to be launching a course this season. So a lot of people have reached out being like, how do you do this? How do you learn how to do it? And truly, when I started this, I had no idea how to do any of this, and it wasn't part of my degree. So I'm excited to provide a course that's fun with Bachelor actual data from Hannah Brown's season and analyze and learn how to use spreadsheets and make beautiful charts.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. I hope that everyone who listened learned something. I will have Bachelor Data's links down below so you guys can check her out and follow her. And we'll be back for another podcast soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, that was my podcast with the Bachelor Data. So you guys have to check her out on Instagram. I'm sure if you didn't already follow her, you will definitely want to follow her now after listening to this podcast because she just has so many interesting facts that you literally can't find anywhere else. So definitely check her out. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of the podcast. It is my birthday, so I'm going to tell you guys what I'm doing. I am going out tonight on Sunset Boulevard with a few of my friends to dinner. We're going to a rooftop to celebrate. And then tomorrow is Friday night, which is my birthday party. And I am having a birthday party at my friend's Airbnb. And it's going to be a reality TV themed birthday party. So all of my friends are coming over dressed up as reality stars. So this is going to be so much fun on June 25th. And everyone's dressing up as housewives, Kardashians, just like I'm dressing up as Kylie Jenner, spoiler alert. So definitely stay tuned for that on Instagram. And I will be vlogging the birthday party and everyone's outfits for a new YouTube video, which will be on my channel probably in the next couple of weeks. If you're just listening to this podcast, I post new YouTube videos every single Tuesday and new podcast episodes every single Thursday. Everything is at Zachary Reality. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse, Twitter, and ZacharyReality.com, and as well as Zachary Reality and Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast. So thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to wish me a happy birthday, and everyone have a great weekend. And I will talk to you guys next time I am on my podcast. Bye.